Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Groot Nibelink. I'm the creator of Apples and Genos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy, and in this podcast, Blake and I are going to continue our 8-episode series in which we go team by team comparing notes on our projections for the 2024-2025 season. Let's get it. And of course, I have your friend and my best friend, the man with the firmest handshake. It's Blake Creamer. Blake, how are you feeling tonight?
Oh, damn. Yeah. You know what? That actually makes me feel really good. I take a lot of pride in my handshake. All right. You got to get in there. You got to go web to web. You know what I'm talking about, Nate? You get right up on the web. Like, what are those people like? And you just give the fingers. Like, don't give me the fingers and don't start from way back here walking towards me. You know what I mean? There's a whole thing. Anyways, buddy, I don't know. I'm doing good. You know what I'm excited about? Getting these projections shows out of the way because I love these shows, but damn, these are beefers, right? And it's really good stuff. So we got to get this out to our listeners, but I'm excited for these next 2 episodes. And then when it's done, we're getting to biz. We got so much content lined up for A&G. It's going to be nuts.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do love these talks because it's fun to talk this out with somebody else who's thought about it kind of independently. And then we come together and we go back and forth a little bit on scenarios and potential outcomes, upside scenarios, all that. But yeah, I am interested to get into some of the fun parts, right? Like we want to get to the sleepers episode. We want to get to the bus episode. We want to do all that kind of stuff. We're gonna like live stream some of our drafts. Josh and I are in the Fantasy Puck Content Creators League again this year. We're probably gonna live stream that draft again. Like we're gonna be doing all that this year, and that kind of content is a lot of fun too. So we've been at this for a while. I do think it's probably the best foundation we can possibly provide, and that's why we do it every year. But yeah, I'm excited about what's to come as well. One other piece of content that you probably already know about that has come out of Apples and Genos is our fantasy guide. It is live as of right now on the Apples and Genos Patreon, link in the description. Everything's in there. Everything you need to set the foundation for your fantasy season. All 32 NHL team fantasy previews in there. We've got standalone articles. If you're interested in learning a little bit about prop betting, maybe dipping your toe in those waters this year. We've got an article from Top Cheddar Fantasy. Ryan met him actually this summer, and he's got an article in there. I'm actually going to be talking to him in an upcoming episode about some fun prop bets that I'm going to dip my toe in this year myself.
You're dipping all the toes in there, Nate. Oh my God. You might as well just jump right in, Nate. Come on.
Fair enough. Obviously, we got a Zero G article in there too. We got ADP, values, bus, sleepers. It's all in there. Yeah, you got to get your hands on it. 140 pages of absolute fantasy goodness. Everybody that has bought it so far has been giving us 5 stars. I've gotten so many DMs, people saying, man, this is awesome. This is way better than I expected. All sorts of great stuff. So if you want to check that out, $7.99 on the Apples and Genos Patreon. You can get that there. Let's continue on, Blake. I want to get into these teams. I don't want to spend a lot of time in the preamble. Let's get into the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, of course, any talk of the Columbus Blue Jackets, we got to start here, obviously, with Johnny Gaudreau. If you've listened to our previous episodes, we did do a little bit of a talk about Johnny Gaudreau. Tried to give him as good a tribute as we could in that scenario. But obviously, there are fantasy implications for him not being on the team this year, and we do have to kind of talk about that. So yeah, we want to acknowledge that again. Difficult situation, difficult for his teammates, I'm sure as well. Yeah, without being too uncaring about the situation, we do have to also analyze the fantasy side of things and what this team looks like now without his presence in the lineup. Obviously, they also lost Patrick Laine, Alex Nylander, Jack Roslovic, Adam Boqvist, other players who played fairly significant roles for them last year at different stretches of the season. And they added Sean Monahan and Jordan Harris. I guess let's talk about it, Blake. Obviously, it's not a fun thing to talk about, but we do need to just kind of give a baseline expectation. With Goudreau not being on the team this year, we have to kind of recalibrate a little bit as to what we
Yep.
thought this team might look like. He was obviously going to be the focal point of the offense, and now it feels like this is a team that is going to have to search for that a little bit.
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, he was their best player.
Yeah.
No question. For fantasy, he was the best fantasy player there as well. So it it's just, yeah, so awful. And then on top of that, yeah, just look what this team has gone through, right? The Columbus Blue Jackets. And yeah, it's really hard. Like you and I were talking a little bit offline, just to kind of see how they move forward with their roster construction, right? Like, I mean, it's not just Gaudreau, it's Line 8, right? Those are two huge pieces. Those are guys that always kept us feeling like Columbus would be okay at some point.
Hmm.
Got the right coaching, if they got the injury situation sorted out, we could see a Columbus that was, starting to hit the potential that we thought they had. And now, yeah, it's kind of thrown that as like a 180 to that. And I think it is unfortunately going to be a really tough year for Columbus. They're so far under the cap as well. Like, I don't know what they're going to do with this team moving forward. And then under the circumstances, it could be a really tough year.
For sure. One thing that I do think will probably help is the coaching change here. We have not been shy about our distaste for what Pascal Vincent did with this team in the past year. Um, he was in a tough situation, no doubt, but it really didn't seem like he did himself any favors with some of the moves he made. Dean Evison coming in, established coach in the league. Yeah, I think Evison at the very least provides stability to the Columbus Blue Jackets from the coach position. I think that it's going to be pretty interesting if you look at what Evison came from a pretty unique situation in Minnesota where, they had those Parise and Suter contracts. They
Yep.
were basically cap constrained way more than any other team in the league. And so he had like a kind of unique spot where he didn't have many top end players. He did well, I will say what he did do is he identified guys like Matt Boldy kind of early on, and he did give Matt Boldy what I think is probably appropriate amounts of ice time for an ascending player in the league. It did really feel like he identified that Boldy was helping the team, that Boldy was a rising star, and that as Boldy got more and more responsible and things like that along the way, he was quick to give Boldy more responsibility in terms of ice time and get him on the top power play and so on and so forth. So that part of it makes me feel a little bit optimistic that Evison is at least like not one of these old school coaches who's like, oh, I'm going to play all the vets on the power play just because
Yep.
they're good old boys. And he's actually going to take a hard look at the team and say, no, this guy is actually, a potential game breaker. And I need to put him in situations where he can be that guy for us because obviously this is a team that needs that. So that part of it has me feeling a little bit optimistic. The other part is like, I think, yeah, Vincent was probably like a worst case scenario in terms of coaching
Yeah.
last year. And so there's like a baseline where Evison comes in and he's got to be better, right? We think he's got to be better than what Vincent was. There's also another level where, like, what if it's great? Like, what if Evison really is what this team needs and they can really rally around something here? Maybe it's a galvanizing thing for this team. There are some scenarios in which the team kind of gels together in the right way. I think the biggest scenario for that would have to include like a pretty big Adam Fantilli breakout where he's the centerpiece of the offense, along with Zach Werenski, and that's kind of how the engine of the offense turns, and we get some more higher end outcomes for fantasy. Anyway, I'm talking a lot here, Blake. I want to pitch it over to you, but there's a lot of things turning around in my mind about what Dean Evison coming into this situation might mean for the Blue Jackets.
Yeah, buddy, I don't have too much more to add than that. I think that's really well said. I mean, every coach when they comes in, and Evison included, says, "Well, we're gonna focus on accountability. We're gonna be hard to play against. We're gonna be difficult." But yeah, I do like what I've seen from Dean Evison so far, and being away from hockey as a head coach for a whole year, you have time to sort of ruminate and learn from things that went well, didn't go well. So I almost think like this isn't exactly like a Dan Bilesman situation because he was away for longer, but I do think the time away is probably going to help Evason coming into this situation. And then now with this, with what's happened here in Columbus, like I think he can't come in with an iron fist, and I
Mhm.
don't think that is really going to be his plan based on the interviews I've read from Evason. So I'm cautiously optimistic as well, and I do actually buy into the narrative a little bit that this could be a galvanizing just season situation. Maybe it doesn't translate on the ice in terms of good performance there, but like I think they'll come together. They'll really be playing for each other, and that's going to equal a better product on the ice.
Right. All right. Let's head over to the power play. I do think this will be a true top power play unit. I think the depth falls off after a certain point, but I do think like Werenski is really the only true lock for me here. I think Sean Monahan, they gave him a big contract this offseason, so that makes a lot of sense. He's played on a
Mm-hmm.
lot of top power plays throughout his career. That makes sense to me. I think probably Boone Jenner is still going to be up there. That makes some sense as well. I think Adam Fantilli, just because I do think this organization views Fantilli as their franchise 1C, the player to build this franchise around, really. And then, if I'm handcuffing it today, I'll go Kirill Marchenko as the fourth guy. I think he's the one with the most goal scoring upside on the team currently. So that would be the way that I would handcuff it. You also have like Dmitry Voronkov, you have Yegor Shinnikov, you have Kent Johnson, you have Cole Sillinger. All these guys have lots of potential in different ways, different facets of the game, some things that they could bring to a power play unit. I don't know. How do you feel this is going to shake up? Like, do you think there's a chance that we get some sort of messy 1A 1B split?
I mean, if something really special happens in training camp, then maybe. But I mean, when you're a new coach coming into a situation like this, I think it makes sense to kind of, go with the veterans, right? The players that have done it before. And Sean Monahan, to me, I didn't have him originally as power play one. I thought they might rip him down to power play two, but I think he's power play one now for sure. And I think what you detailed is probably how it's going to start. But also, like you said, they have so many other options, right? Like
Yeah.
it could be a 1A, 1B situation here, right? Because they have those Russian players that most likely will be on the second power play besides Marchenko, right? So who knows? This is going to be a story that we have to watch in training camp and see how they line up. And I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of all eat into each other's time. And hopefully, to me, I think Fantilli should be the kind of common thread throughout there. I think that's a player that should get. I mean, I projected him for the most power play time on ice, and it's still under 3 minutes. So I think is it hopeful? I don't know. I don't know if I'm just being hopeful there, but I think, like you said, any success they have this year, I think they need to start leaning into Adam Fantilli and see what they have here.
Yep. I think I would be happy to see that. I think it's their best bet at having a efficient power play is to build it that way. Let's dig in then on the projections here. Let's start with Monahan up at the top. You've got him for 20 goals, 33 assists, 53 points. You have him for 24 goals, 29 assists, 53 points. I think we see it fairly similarly. Monahan, not a guy who's really blown the doors off at any point throughout his career. I do think he's going to have a pretty significant role on this team.
Mm-hmm.
I have him for over 18 minutes time on ice. I could see that even going more in some scenarios. The kind of weird thing about Columbus is that they have Boone Jenner, they have Sean Monahan, and they have Adam Fantilli, three natural centers who are potentially like their three best
Yeah.
forwards. So are they all going to play center, or is one or multiple of them going to play some wing at some point? I think you want Fantilli like in a year that is not going to be like a playoff push year, or you feel pretty confident it's not going to be a playoff push year. I think you want Fantilli playing center all year long. I don't think you
Mm-hmm.
want to move him on the wing. So does Boone Jenner move to the wing? He has played wing in the past. Yeah, there's a whole lot of ways that this could go. Either way, I expect Evason to kind of figure it out and to get big minutes to Monahan, Jenner, and Fantilli. I think, yeah, Monahan for 53 points. I think we're both seeing that fairly similarly.
Yeah, I mean, nice little resurgence for this guy. I think it was a nice signing for the Columbus Blue Jackets, and not an exciting one, but to me, just like chipping away, just getting a little bit better, and that's a really nice piece. And now he's going to be relied on for a bigger role.
Yeah.
originally. Like I have changed some of my projections on Columbus here, and Monahan was one of them. I gave him a little bit more ice time moving forward because of what you said with the three centers there, right? Like you got Boone Jenner, who's the captain. Are they really going to put him down as the 3C? Like maybe. I mean, they absolutely could. I'm hoping for fantasy we get Jenner on the left wing, but I think Monahan's role on that top line is probably pretty damn secure. And I love that he played 82 games last year. That's amazing, right? 59 points in 83 games he had. Holy moly,
Yeah.
buddy, what are you doing? And a really nice performance on the power play as well. So just a boring fantasy option, but he's going to be motivated, and if he's healthy, I think these projections make sense.
Yep. All right, let's continue on. Kirill Marchenko, I have for 26.5 goals, 20 assists, comes out to 47 points. You have him also for 26.5
It's
goals,
crazy, man.
22 assists, 49 total points there. Marchenko is a guy that I think has potential. I think he potentially was one of, if not the player most affected by the craziness that was Pascal Vincent as a head coach in
Yeah.
the National Hockey League. Um, it's really seemed to me like Marchenko was close to a breakout the year before. He had a huge second half of the season before, and then came in. It was Vincent, and Vincent like gave him some time at some points, and then took it away and moved everybody all over this lineup, and he never got anything going all year long. So I think there's at least a chance that Marchenko is like a breakout scorer that they desperately need on this team this year. So this is one player that I do think actually has some upside on this squad. I actually think there's a lot of upside on this squad. It's
Yeah.
just like how many, 25% bets do you need for one of them or multiple of them to actually hit and you to get somewhere? Marchenko is a guy that I'm actually pretty interested in. I'll be keeping tabs on. He has 30 plus goal scoring upside in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And if he can secure power play one, like maybe we get 3 minutes on the power play for Marchenko. Now we're looking, he's getting close to 20 power play points, right? So
Right.
that's really nice as well. But yeah, this guy's a great shooter, really good finisher. And he's a really good rusher as well. Like Columbus, they were hot garbage last year in terms of their metrics, like team metrics. They awful defensively, save for they were pretty decent at suppressing shots off the rush, which is that's a nice place to be. That's the one little caveat. They were decent there, and they're also pretty darn good at generating rush shots as well. And a guy like Kirill Marchenko, he's the one kind of leading that charge, right? And I don't think that's really going to change. So I like his ability to generate offense, and we just need to see more opportunity. But yeah, like you said, this whole team is almost like you're kind of just hoping. It's like who comes out
Yeah.
on top. It's really hard to predict.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say this projection for me with Marchenko comes in under 17 minutes. So, yeah, if you see a scenario where Marchenko becomes an Evason favorite and suddenly he's an 18-minute player, 18
Yep.
plus minute player, like there are definitely some significant upside scenarios beyond this, mid to high 40s projection that we've got him for. All right, Boone Jenner, I have for 28 goals, 29 assists, 57 points. You have for 25 goals, 26 assists, 51 points. Why do you hate Boone Jenner so much, Blake?
How dare you, sir? Oh my God! I've chronicled in multiple podcasts that if I could have with my real dad as well, so I guess my 3 dads, but my other 2 dads would be Boone Jenner and Vincent Trocheck. All right, and I'm their surrogate son. This man is a beautiful man, beautiful head of hair, amazing jawline. Plus, he's a year-to-year threat for 25 goals, 250 shots, over 100 hits, potentially 100 blocks. What the? This guy's a machine. I love Boone Jenner. Just I think he needs to stay healthy. And my only issue with Boone Jenner this year is what we've already chronicled, right? Like, where is he playing? Well,
Yeah.
now we have Monahan. Now we have Fantilli. And I really do believe if they're smart, Fantilli needs to be moved up the lineup. You can't bury this guy on the third line anymore. We need to see what he can do. He's a generational talent, similar to Bedard. Like if there was no Bedard, we're looking at Fantilli as the number 1 pick for of that year, and a really good one at that. So I think because he's the captain, he's still going to get a ton of run, but yeah, his play style does get injured here and there. I don't have much to say on this. This guy, he lived off efficiency last year, so I think the Columbus Blue Jackets will probably be a little less efficient this year, right? I think we should expect kind of a little downturn in terms of their team efficiency. So that's kind of where it comes. But I mean, he was on a 49 pace last year. Like I got him for 51. All right. I bumped him up 2 points, and I love me some Boone Jenner. Thank you, Papa Boone, for your service. This guy's amazing.
All right, let's move on. Dmitry Voronkov, I have for 20 goals, 23 assists, 43 points. You have for 20 goals, 16 assists for 36 points. I kind of lump Voronkov and Chinikov together. Chinikov I have for a little bit more, 20 goals, 25 assists, 45 points. You have for 20 goals, 24 assists, 44 points.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of lumped them together. Yeah, there were obviously some reports of them just kind of hanging out. Voronkov, like at one point, was talking about like going back to Russia, but apparently having Chinikov and Marchenko there actually kind of helped him to stay because he had some guys from Russia there. Could obviously talk to them in Russian and not feel
That's
completely
nice.
out of place, I guess. And that seemed to elevate his game actually at some point. They did run that Voronkov, Chinikov, Marchenko line a few times, and that actually kind of worked for a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, there is some like versatility, I guess, to Voronkov and Chinikov. It feels like they could kind of move into any kind of line anywhere and be decent. I just don't have a lot of confidence that either player will be like an Evison favorite. That's kind of how I'm feeling at the moment. I have Voronkov for 14 minutes, 45 seconds average time on ice, and I have Chinikov for 15 minutes, 15 seconds.
Yeah, I'm sort of in the same vein. I definitely put Chinikov higher than Voronkov. I'm not. I mean, I think this guy had a fine season last year, but yeah, there's some weird stuff in the background there. Like this is the type of player that might just be like, you know what, I'm going back to Russia, right? Like there's nothing really holding him here at this point. And plus, when you dig in on the metrics on Voronkov, like there's nothing really there. Like this guy is kind of the sniper on the line, right? He's a good shooter, decent shooter, but he's never carrying the puck in, right? He's not a great skater. He's not really forechecking that well, right? So he's not bringing that much to the table on that line. He's more of a supplementary piece to what Chinikov and Marchenko were doing last year, right? And who's he playing with this year? You know, I think Voronkov and Chinikov will probably play on the same line, maybe with Fantilli. I mean, that's not terrible, right? Because you got Fantilli, who's an amazing rusher, right? Voronkov can just set up and do what he needs to do. But I just don't like what I see in the underlying metrics with this player. I think, you know, he lived off efficiency, even though he shot 12.7%. Like I could see that going down. And when a coach, any coach, even Pascal Vincent, you know, gives you 13 minutes, 27 seconds average time on ice, like only 11 at even strength or whatever he had last year. It's like there's something going on there that they don't like, right? He's not bringing a lot to the table defensively either.
Yep. Yeah, I think that kind of sums it up. I think there is some potential with these players, but they definitely need to take a step from what we've seen so far. And whether they will or not under Evison is kind of anybody's guess at this point. Adam Fantilli is next up. Player I have a lot of love for. Will definitely be in any sort of sleepers episode that we put out. 28 goals, 31 assists, 59 points is my projection. 28 goals, 32 assists, 60 points. Blake just had to one up me there. Yeah, I love everything I've seen out of Fantilli so far. The underlying metrics as a fresh 19-year-old coming into the league on a bad team were just electric. He was playing down the lineup and completely elevating his line as a 19-year-old.
Yep.
Just, yeah, everything that I saw out of Fantilli screamed future superstar to me. I think I think there is a scenario this year where Fantilli goes for a point per game. I don't think that's likely. I think that's probably like, you know, like a 95th percentile plus outcome. But I think that's within the range of outcomes for Fantilli if everything clicks right and he gets, you know, if he is like Evison's guy from day one, he's like the 1C with a bullet. They just want to ride this guy and make him their stallion for the year, basically. Yeah, I don't think that's likely. I have them down for just under 17 minutes average time on ice. I think they're in a season where they don't have a lot to prove to anybody.
Yeah.
It's more likely that you let Monahan handle a bit more of the tougher minutes, let Jenner handle some of those faceoffs, and let Fantilli kind of ripen a little bit. I don't think they'll be forced to lean on Fantilli in the way like a Chicago was with Bedard last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's more likely that he gets subdued a little bit just in terms of the ice time and the deployment. But I do think that there are some scenarios where they're like, man, this guy is like far and away our best player. We've just got to put him on the ice.
Yeah. And I think where a lot of that value that we're hoping to see is going to be on the power play, right? Like I've projected him for 19 power play points. He had 3 last year, right? For reference. So I mean, if nothing else changes and he just gets another 45 seconds on the power play, yeah, these projections are going to be pretty close. And if you look at this guy's IPP, like at even strength, 77. That's elite. Like
Yeah.
that's Connor McDavid, right? Like that we're in that vicinity. I'm not saying Adam Fantilli's Connor McDavid. Don't at me. But I mean, also he was, like some of that is he's playing with lesser line mates, right?
Yep.
Like Voronkov and Marchenko, right? Not, we just talked about them, so that's fine. But he did play with Johnny Gaudreau a little bit, and I just think that he's going to get boosted up the lineup and prioritized a little bit more. So, but he has that in there. I think, well, like, what do you have for his IPP at even strength? Because I regressed him, but only down to 71%. Like, I think this is truly a player that is going to drive offense wherever he goes.
Yeah, I have him at 70, so right there. All right. Let's keep growing then. Kent Johnson, I didn't do a projection for Kent Johnson. Blake, you did. You had him for 16 goals and 27 assists for 43 points there. Talk to me about Kent Johnson. I know you like some of the underlying stuff with Kent Johnson. My problem with Kent Johnson is so far no coach has really liked him. I don't know if Evason's the guy who's gonna look past the defensive flaws that have apparently been his downfall so far. Feels a little bit like the Trevor Zegras of the team, like budget Trevor Zegras, where the talent is really obvious, but like unless he figures out the rest of it, they may just not like him, especially these older coaches who are really trying to bring some accountability and stability to a lineup. Yeah, I think there's a lot of upside here, but talk to me about what you think is a realistic outcome for Johnson this year.
I love that budget Trevor Zegras. Oh man, I'm sorry, Ken Johnson. This man listens to the show, Nate. Are you just trying to alienate him
I'm
the way
sorry,
Pascal
Ken.
Vincent did? Oh my God. It's really hard for me to look at Ken Johnson's season last year and trust that that's how it's going to be moving forward. Like he's only had 2 seasons, right? And his first season, he had 39 points in 79 games. That's pretty nice, right? This guy's 5th overall pick in 2021. The offensive acumen is out of this world. He's crazy. He's an elite player at that. So he just was never put in a situation to succeed last year, right? This might be a player that, yeah, I like what you said earlier, ripen, right? But needs to do that in an environment where you're set up to succeed, an offensive environment, right? With offensive players. His main line last year was Emil Bemstrom and Cole Sillinger, right? Which is not exactly plum deployment. So, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen this year. I do think there's a world where Kent Johnson sees top 6 minutes on the left side, right? With the situation as it is currently in Columbus, because this guy, he's amazing offensively, right? And I think he understands what he needs to do to stay in this lineup. But again, it is really hard for me to look at what Pascal Vincent did. Like he basically just threw a wrench in this kid's development, in my opinion, by just kind of just crushing his confidence. And, we don't know the full story. Like obviously defensively, we're not getting what we need here from Kent Johnson either, but I'm expecting a little bit of a bounce back here. This player is too good to be, on a 31-point pace on this team.
All right. Yeah, I will also shout out Cole Sillinger here. Had a terrific, in my opinion, true 18-year-old rookie season coming into the league. And then last year really felt like a lost year, similar to Johnson in that way. Mm-hmm. I do think that Sillinger has some real goal scoring potential, like could be a 25, 30 goal guy in his prime. So I don't know if this is the year where that potential really starts to show and to mature, but I do want to just throw that out there. Super deep sleeper, I guess. Cole
nice
Sillinger.
Peripherals too on this kid.
Yeah, he does that as well. So keep an eye out for Cole Sillinger in your deepest, darkest leagues. Let's talk about the defenseman. Obviously, have to start with Zach Werenski here. I have him for 16 goals, 50 assists. That comes out to 66 points with the round down there. Blake, you have him for 19 goals, 46 assists, 65 points. Obviously, we're big fans of Zach Werenski. We've been talking this guy up for years at this point, it feels like. Last year, you got him at an absolute steal, and he rewarded you. This year, I think he converts a few more of those assists back into goals and has even more of an effect in that scenario and that statistic for you. Big time shot producer from the back end. There's, I think, a scenario this year with Gaudreau out of the picture, where Werenski is actually a bit more of even a puck handler, especially on the power play. They could really funnel this entire thing through him. I do think he's that adept offensively, and he can manipulate players on the power play to his advantage. I have him for the most power play points on the team by a fair bit, actually. So I'm still quite high on Zach Werenski. I do think that he's gonna again skate like 24, 25 minutes a night. Overall, like I think one of the things I do want to mention too is like I don't think this top four in Columbus is actually that bad. Damon Severson, Ivan Provorov, up and coming David Jiricek, like
Mm-hmm.
that's not the worst top four in the NHL by a long shot. So there is a little bit of something to work with here. You get a few breakouts from some of the young kids up front, and the top four kind of does its job. Like they have the number one defenseman. If they can get the number one center figured out, if Fantilli can be that dude, like I think there are some scenarios. That's why I'm a little bit optimistic still on Columbus this year, is because I do think Werenski is capable of being the engine. Like again, I'm going to use the budget term, but budget Romagnosi for this team, right?
Oh my,
He
that's
can
better than
be.
budget Trevor Zegras.
I think that is,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a little bit better.
I confidently say that at this point. But anyway, I don't need to talk too much about Werenski. I've done it enough. Blake, tell me what you think is reasonable upside for him this year.
Yeah, this is one of my projections. I did go back in and alter and tweak a little bit, just with the passing of John Gaudreau. Yeah, I took down a little bit of on ice shooting percentage. I took down a little bit of his actual shooting percentage. So I ended up with a number that is closer to yours. So I've got him for 17 goals and 42 assists, 59 points, which I
Okay.
think is a little more reasonable. I mean, can he smash that? Yeah, absolutely. Like based on all the reasons you said, this is a guy, big time shots from the back end. He still hasn't really popped on the power play, and that's where I think we were excited, right? We were really
Yeah.
excited. Liney and Gaudreau, and now it's going to be Fantilli and Monahan, right? Which is a little bit different.
Yep.
Definitely a different look. Maybe it equals more. He's more the focal point on the power play, which he could match kind of the numbers that we had. But yeah, I love this player. I mean, you've said this multiple times. On another team, this guy could be like a top 5 fantasy defenseman in the league.
All right. Damon Severson, Ivan Provorov, we both did projections, but neither really purport to be super fantasy relevant. Obviously, Severson came out to 36.5 points for me, 35 for you. Provorov, 31 points for me, 28 for you. And then Jiricek as well, if he takes a step as a young player in the league, could also factor in somewhere around that 30-point mark. I don't think you're going to be rostering any of these guys unless there is some sort of Werenski injury. And honestly, I don't even know who would
Yeah.
move up in that
Who's the
scenario.
backup?
Yeah, I think most likely Severson and Provorov are the power play two
Yeah.
guys for a good chunk of the year. Maybe Juracek forces his way onto that unit at some point. Also, plenty of possibility on that front, but none of these guys are really players that I'm going to be excited about. Obviously, if Werenski were to go down, somebody went on the top power play, sure, we're going to pick him up. We're going to roster him then, but until then, I don't think they're anything more than a streamer. You got anything else on these guys, Blake?
Not much. Just, I mean, I saw Provorov got a haircut in the offseason as well. It's even worse. Like, does anybody, can we get this man a barber? Like, there's amazing barbers in the area. I've heard about that. So let's fade him up. Let's get some racing lines. Maybe one of those tails in the back. I mean, that's
Mm.
before your time, Nate. But I mean, anything, right? Help this man out.
He could use a haircut, that is for sure. All right, top three targets for me. Obviously, number one going to be Fantilli, and number two going to be Werenski. Number three will be Marchenko for me. Yeah, I think I've said my piece there, but these guys all have the most upside basically for me, just based on their individual talent levels.
Yep. Werenski to me is my number one, just because you can still get him at crazy value in Yahoo anyway. Ridiculous. Adam Fantilli, he's undrafted at this point in Yahoo on his ADP, so that's a really nice sleeper. And then Marchenko, he's going to be probably your first waiver guy for Columbus. If you're picking up a Columbus Blue Jacket. So yeah, again, there is some hope. There is some players on this team, but there's so much variance with Evason coming in there. Like, this is a team we need to really keep our eye on in training camp.
For sure, there could be some juice here that we need to extract at some point. This
Nice.
next team might have some juice worth extracting as well. The Colorado Avalanche, key departures. Obviously, Bowen Byram leaves and Casey Middlestat comes in the deal at the end of the season last year. Incoming as well, newcomer Nikolai Kovalenko comes over. And also Eric Brandstrom came in to kind of replace Byram's role this offseason. Coaching change. Obviously, they're not going to change anything here. Jared Bednar, Stanley Cup winning coach, he's going to be around for the foreseeable future at this point. And honestly, probably one of the better fantasy
Oh
coaches we
yeah.
have out there, right? Yeah, definitely does the right thing as far as us fantasy managers are concerned, right, Blake?
This guy's incredible, and his players are incredible too. Like, not every single player can go out there and just rock 22 minutes a night like it's no thing. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
these guys, the top players on Colorado, like I love it, and I love what Jared Bednar is doing there. So yeah, this guy's amazing for fantasy.
All right, true top power play unit for sure. You have McKinnon, you have Rantanen, you have Makar, absolute locks. Yeah, first round fantasy picks in every league. So definitely they're on the top power play. It is going to get pretty interesting pretty fast. I like the way I had it projected when I first did my first round of projections was Drouin Lehkonen on the top power play. Then we got some word that Landeskog was eyeing an early season return, I believe was the term used.
Yep.
Um, and then obviously we still have the looming Valerie Nichushkin case. There's been tons of talk about there's like random scouts weighing in on, oh yeah, Nichushkin's definitely just going to go straight back as soon as he's eligible to play. Like I don't, I honestly have no idea what to do with that information. Like some random guy's opinion about that. Like okay, that's great that you think that.
You
There's
retweet it.
also
That's what you do, Nate.
yeah. There's also like talk that the owner is just like done with the Chushkin and like doesn't want him back. And again, like it's all feels like really hearsay stuff, and I'm not sure if I really want to let that enter into my thinking. Basically, what I want to ask as it regards to power play, Blake, is for both of these guys, Landeskog and Nichushkin, if they are in the lineup, do they immediately supplant Druin or Lehkonen when they are?
I believe Landeskog would for sure. If he's good to
Mhm.
go, I think he's going to get first crack there. Nichushkin, I do believe that he's going to come back to the Avalanche, but he's got an extremely short leash, right? Like they're not going to fart around with this guy anymore. There's been lots going on, and we don't know the half of it. I mean,
No.
I don't know what's going on with Nichushkin. So obviously we all hope that he's getting the help he needs, and I don't really understand the situation, but the fact is the last 2 seasons he's left the team at the worst possible time, kind of left them holding the bag while he deals with his own stuff, but that means something, and
Mhm.
there is one report I saw about Nichushkin too, like that Nathan McKinnon is contacting him once a week. I saw
Mhm.
that again, and it's like some random guy. You're like, okay, sure, I'll believe that. Yeah, that sounds nice, because I want Nichushkin on my fantasy team. But anyways, I think Landeskog will jump in for sure. Nichushkin, I wouldn't be surprised if they slow roll him on power play too.
Hmm.
Yeah, and in my opinion, I think that Lehkonen is the one to stay on power play 1, and I think Drouin is the one to get bounced.
All right. I would actually reverse that personally, just because I think Druin really established chemistry towards the back end of last year,
Mhm.
especially with McKinnon. But like, yeah, that line really seemed to work at the end of last year with McKinnon and Rantanen on the power play and at even strength. And so I feel like Druin has probably earned himself a little bit more of a look there. And Lekkonen's just such a valuable piece for them overall that I feel
Yeah.
like they don't feel the need to have him on a power play. That's my take of the other side of that coin. But yeah, definitely there are some kind of moving pieces around this power play, much more than there have been in years past. Let's dig into the projections. Start with McKinnon. We're not going to spend a lot of time
Nope.
here. I have for 45 goals, 84 assists, 129 points. You have for 47 goals, 83 assists, 130 points. Yeah, Nathan McKinnon, draft him pretty early.
He's good. All right. You know what? The main thing about Nathan McKinnon, and like when I go through our projections, he comes out on top. He comes out over Connor McDavid in my projections, and I wouldn't draft him there. But the really key thing there is the projected shots. This guy
Yeah.
is a machine. He's a soggy boy. He's moist. All right, he does that. So, we love McKinnon for that. This guy's going to have an amazing year.
For sure. So I did do a projection for Landeskog. I gave him 70 games played, just kind of saying, they'll work him in
Mhm.
as the season gets
Yep.
started. Still came out to 23 goals, 38 and a half assists, 61 points for me. I did give him a pretty decent haircut on a lot of stats. I feel like people forget how good
Yep.
Landeskog was with
Yep.
these two, with McKinnon and with Rantanen. This is still the captain of the team. Like they haven't given the captaincy to anybody else while he's been gone. It's not like they've been that worried. It does seem like the intent all along was for him to come back and play eventually. They've definitely taken their time with it. It seems like they're really trying to get him to a place where he can play. Whether or not he can at an NHL level is still to be seen. But assuming that he can, I do think this is a pretty valuable player for fantasy. Wherever you're going to get him in leagues, if we get more news, then obviously that's going to have a huge effect on where you can draft him. But right now in Yahoo ADP, 135.7, if you have IR spots in your league and you can draft him and just throw him on there, and then when he comes back, all of a sudden you have a top line, top power play player on the Colorado Avalanche. You can't really quantify what a massive boost to your team that is. That's well worth a double digit round pick in any scenario, as far as I'm concerned. Where would you think that it would be a reasonable spot if just with the information we have today, where do you think would be a reasonable spot to target Landeskog in leagues right now?
I like that. I like 135.7, but I'm not doing it. I just this has been a major, major injury, and I look back at a player like Max Pacioretty, and he's not Max Pacioretty. They don't really profile the same even, but that's a massive injury, and he wasn't exactly healthy before that. This guy had 3 seasons of 54 games, 54 games, 51 games. He's a guy that struggles to stay healthy. There's no question there. And then this massive injury that he had here, what was it to his I don't
Knee
even remember.
cartilage,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's his knee cartilage. You know, you need your knee to skate. And I know he's working so hard. He's going to come back, and I like that. But I really am not holding out hope that he's going to be even close to the player that he was. I'm just not, right, until I see it. So yeah. That said, I think he would get top line, top power play, right? But I'm not expecting what I've seen before. Like this guy was on a 95-point pace in his last season. I don't think that's even going to be in the vicinity. I think, what did you get him for here? 61 points in 70 games. Yeah, I mean, that would be amazing. That would be an amazing story if Landeskog came in and did that. I mean, obviously he has the ability to do that, but I'm too concerned about the injury in this one. This is an injury narrative that I'm going to stay away from.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, for me it's just at that cost at 135 ADP, I'm slamming that. Because I'm dropping all those players in those double digit rounds anyway. You go back and you look at your teams from last year, look how many double digit round players actually made it on your team throughout the entire season. If your team's really good, you probably dropped every single one of the guys that you drafted in the double digit rounds.
Yeah.
So if you can draft a guy who will be on your team if he's playing, because let's be honest, Jonathan
But he
Drouin played in that role last year, and he was nothing for many many years, and all of a sudden he's like a 60 plus point scoring pace player, just by virtue of the role. Like Landeskog does not have to; he can be a shell of his former self and still be very fantasy relevant, in my opinion. So yeah, for me,
but
I'm absolutely interested.
Yeah, I don't know. This is a guy though, this has load management written all over it, right? Like he comes out and maybe he plays really great, and then okay, you sit the next 2 games. I just don't want the headache. You know what I mean? Like this is a guy they want for the playoffs. Like we've been able to see what Colorado can do without Gabe Landeskog, right? I think they want to keep him healthy for the playoffs. So I could absolutely see him not just playing 70 games straight, right? And I'm just looking at a Yahoo ADP right now. Like there's some good pieces in and around there, right? You got I'd rather Jordan Kyrou is 132, right? I'd take Jordan Kyrou here. Nick Schmaltz is 137. Your favorite Jeff Skinner, Nikolai Ehlers is 141, right? Like I'm taking those guys over Landy all day. I do love putting a player into IR though. That is really smart. But to me, I like doing that with my last 3 picks.
All right. Mikko Rantanen next up, 43 goals, 66 assists, and
Oh
109
yeah.
points is my projection. And you have the exact same, Blake. So I think we see
How do
this
we do this?
pretty similarly. Yeah, mid first round pick. Is there anything more to say?
No, I mean 50 goal potential. Like this guy scored an insane amount of goals over the last few seasons. He's good to go. He's super consistent. Very safe pick in the first round.
Yeah, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time there. One of the more locked in players across the league. Casey Middlestat, the new 2C in town, 16 and a half goals, 38 assists, 54.5 points for me, 16 goals, 40 assists, 56 points for you. Yeah, Casey Middlestat, one of our favorite players here, Blake. Do you think that there's any chance that he could challenge, like, let's say in a scenario where Landeskog and Nichushkin aren't really factoring into the power play plans, could he challenge Druin and Lehkonen for top power play?
Yeah, I think so for sure. I think Middlestat is a better passer than both those players. So, I mean, it depends on what they're looking for. Like you said, Drouin does have that chemistry, and I think that that is an important piece that we need to be aware of, right? Um, but I do like what Middlestat brings to the table in terms of his chance assists, shot assists, rush shot assists, all that stuff, high danger passes. He's good to go. He's in like the 80th to 90th percentile in all those things. So yeah, he does stuff. I mean, he doesn't shoot worth a damn, buddy. Come on, put the biscuit in the basket. Just shoot that little thing over to that guy with the mask. Can you do that for me, buddy? But yeah, I think that like he's in the conversation, right? But I think he's definitely below Lehkonen and Drouin for me for power play time.
All right, Druin next up, 17 goals, 39 assists. That comes out to 56 points for me. 17 goals, 36 assists, 53 points for you. Yeah, I'm just a little bit higher because I do think he hangs
Yeah.
on to a power play spot a little bit longer. So, yeah, 50 plus points. Most of it's going to be assists. He doesn't really shoot. He doesn't really bang. He doesn't do much of any of that. So he's really just a streamer level for me, I think.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, though. I mean, he had 20 points in the last 18 games. Getting to biz with insane deployment. Just my issue is when that deployment goes away, right? We got Landeskog, we got Nichushkin. That's going to eat into Drouin's time. And then, yeah, if he doesn't get that top power play time, like, if you look at what he's been able to do in his career, like he had a career high last year. 56 points is Drouin's career high. This is a third overall pick in 2013. I mean, he landed in a great spot, though. I'm super happy for him. I'm wondering why he was only able to secure like a 1-year contract with Colorado there. That's kind of a strange. I just thought that was strange. I thought he did enough to show, yeah, I want to be a part of this team for some term, but they ended up locking him down for 2.5. So that doesn't give me a lot of confidence in their confidence in Drouin either.
Yeah, I feel like probably a good chunk of that is the uncertainty around Landeskog and Nichushkin, and them just kind of hedging their bets and wanting to have one more year before they decide on anything long term. There, that would be my guess. I don't have any insider information, obviously, on that. Lehkonen next up, I have for 27 goals, 34 assists, 61 points. You have for 28 goals, 30 assists, and rounding down to 57 points. Really solid player.
Yeah.
Yeah, consistently performs when given the opportunity. I might try to take him down a little bit on the power play after this. It does feel a little bit hot. Feels a little bit like a ceiling play here, especially with Landeskog in the wings and potentially Nichushkin as well. It just feels like I'm projecting him at ceiling, and that doesn't feel great. But either way, like definitely a player who takes a fair amount of shots. He's gonna give you close to 100 hits, probably. He's gonna play in all situations for the Avalanche. Coach loves this player. I think he's a pretty safe player and a player that you're probably not going to regret having on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just finished 11 games with the Colorado Avalanche in the playoffs, averaging 22 minutes time on ice. I mean, yeah, that's without Nichushkin, right? But damn, that's insane deployment. So he has the coach's confidence. That's just something to keep in the back of your mind, because I think everything we said about Lehkonen holds water right now, but this guy's one of the next men up, right? And it's a big step from what he might be deployed at to what he could be deployed at. Right. I
Yep.
mean, and I love that about Lehkonen. So to me, this is a guy that I'm definitely interested in like my last few picks. Right. I think, this is a very solid pick, big time shot producer as well. So yeah, I'm into Lehkonen.
All right. And of course, we had to do a projection on Ross Colton, our
Yeah.
favorite here. 21 goals, 23 assists, 44 points for me, 20 goals, 23 assists, and 43 points for you. Yeah, I still love Russ Colton as a player. I still think he is absolutely terrific. He came over to Colorado last year. The underlying metrics pretty much stayed the same. Like he's still wildly efficient, huge IPP, um, strong shooting percentage, strong shot generation, even in a third line role with, like the Miles Woods and Logan O'Connors of this team. Yeah, I still think that this is a player who, if he ever was given some sort of top power play shot on a team like this, that he would be absolutely electric for fantasy. 137 hits I have him projected for, so he does
Oh
that
yeah.
too. I have him getting to 44 points with a just under 14 minutes average time on ice projection because Bednar absolutely refuses to play his bottom six. Um, yeah, I still love the player. I don't think there's a role for him on this team, unfortunately, beyond the third line center.
Yeah, buddy, why does Ross Colton have a Cameo account? I don't understand. All right. We tried again this year, Nate. Just, hey, buddy, can you give us a little message? Can you give us a little shout out? He just emailed me personally back. It just said no. And that was it. This guy's a dingus, but oh man, he's a beefer with cheese. He does that. And I'm holding a candle for this guy. Just for you, honestly. I'm like, Nate loves Ross Colton, so I love Ross Colton. All right. This guy's like he's so far down the pecking order. It's ridiculous. So, and
Yeah.
he did have some time. Remember last year when he got a little bit of time on Power Play 1 and we're like, this is it. Let's go, buddy. And just donuts, just
Yeah.
ghosted us just the same way he does on Cameo, buddy. I don't know, but he's a good looking man. I mean, beautiful head of hair. We know this. He's a great role player for this team. He does things so well. This is a type of guy you want in the playoffs as well. So I'm a fan of the player. I would love to see him hit kind of the way we've been talking about him the last few years here.
All right, Devin Taves getting into the defenseman. 11 goals, 38 assists, 49 points for me. 11 goals, 39 assists, 50 points for you. I think Devin Taves is a really solid pick. Probably going to be underrated in a lot of your drafts. He doesn't hit a lot, but he provides decent shots. He's going to give you over 100 blocks. He's going to do those things for you. And then you have the contingent upside.
Yeah.
If you're one of those people who seems to think that Makar is injury prone, even though he's played, like, I forget what it was, 92% of his games over the last 3 seasons or
Yep.
something like that. If you're one of those people, then you should be super into Devin Taves because if Makar ever does go down, Devin Taves is the next guy up and he would absolutely crush that role. He'd be like a 60 plus point projection with Power Play 1. So Devin Taves feels like a really safe bet that you can make pretty late in your drafts. And then if he does pop off for Power Play 1 at any point, then you're absolutely loving life.
Yeah, this is just an underrated guy, but he's a perfect fourth defenseman for your team, right? Like he does it all, and like you said, that insurance play with Makar if he ever does get injured. But he's good standalone. Like this guy got 50 points with 5 power play points, right? So he's really doing it at even strength, and that should give us a lot of confidence, right? In this player, he gets a ton of minutes, and his minutes were down last year a little bit too. So I mean, maybe there's a little bit of headroom there. Like, what did you project him for ice time, Nate?
On the ice time side, yeah, they actually did deprioritize both Makar and Taves a little bit last year relative to the years before. At even strength them for 19 minutes, overall 23 and a half.
Yeah, I was the same there, like just under 24. Like, yeah, they're probably saving him for the playoffs because in the playoffs, 25 minutes, Devin Taves. That's what we're doing. So, I mean, they're managing his load. Giggity. Oh, God. We need some load management over here, Nate. Do you have any connection? I don't know. You know what? We'll take
We're
that
not going
offline,
there
Nate. No,
tonight.
no, that's
Yeah.
fine. Right. All right. But Devin Taves, good defenseman, confirmed.
All right, let's talk about Keel McCarr and try not to do any managing of loads while we do so. 23 and a half goals, 69 assists, which
Woo!
is nice and unfortunate timing. 93 points, 25 goals, 66 assists, 91 points for you. Again, similar to what we've said for McKinnon and Rantanen, I don't know what there really is to say about Makar other than he's absolutely elite. He's probably my favorite player to watch play in the NHL right now. Is just unbelievable the way he skates, the way he thinks the game, the way he rushes when he wants to. He can take over a game. Yeah, just I haven't seen anything like it in quite a long time. Hall of Fame trajectory for this player.
Oh, hell yeah. I love this player too. I'm so excited. I think the big question with Cale Makar is where are you drafting him, right? And maybe that's kind of a nice little piece here. So points in category leagues, where are you drafting Cale Makar, or where does he go? Because he's a first rounder, but at what position do you think, Nate?
Yeah, it's a fair point. I think his valuable replacement is sky high.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Yossi routinely show out, especially in the kind of cacuffle adjacent formats that we typically put out there. So yeah, I think you're anywhere in like the mid to late first is fine with me. He's probably within that tier of like after you get past, the Kucherov, Pasternak, probably Draisaitl tier. Once those guys come off, I'm personally probably taking Kaprizov there, but within like the Rantanen, Hughes, that kind of tier, you can fit Makar somewhere in there for me, and it is a tier for me. Like I'm not gonna like raise my eyebrows at you if you choose one of those guys over the other.
Yeah, I love that. I'm in total agreement there, and I love the cap take as well. We're steaming this man up a little bit, and I think we're going to be really happy with that once the season is done.
All right, last off, I did throw in a quick projection on Samuel Girard for myself. 5 goals, 26 assists, 31 points. Yeah, he's kind of fallen off. It did seem earlier in his career like there was some sort of upward trajectory here, but it really does seem like Devin Taves is the guy to take the power play minutes, and Gerard is never going to be that guy. The shots have kind of fallen off. He's not really a big contributor peripherally, and so, yeah, there was some excitement about Gerard earlier on. I think there is still some of that like lingering in fantasy managers' minds, but I don't think this is a player that we need to be super concerned about for fantasy.
Yep, could be a good streamer anyway.
Top three targets for me, Devin Taves, and then I did throw both Landeskog and Nichushkin on here. Like the top guys, you know where you're drafting them, right? You know what you're doing there. So I did kind of struggle to come up with targets on this team just because of that. But yeah, Landeskog and Nichushkin, I think just the potential upside here is so huge that I want to take the shot. And I'm willing to do so in double digit rounds, especially if you have a spot you can just stash them for as long as it takes. If it never comes to fruition, okay, I wasted a double digit round pick. I'm not going to be that worried about it. Yeah, that's how I'm looking at it.
Yep. I'm right in line with you here. Devin Taves first. I left Landeskog off for the reasons that I mentioned. I'm just not touching him this year. I hope all the best. Like I would love to see your projection come true on Landeskog. That would be an amazing story. And then we got a real player again for fantasy, which I would love. But I got Lehkonen as number 2, and I got Nichushkin as number 3. I got a quick question for you: Nichushkin or Landeskog for your injury reserve? Like they have different ADPs. Obviously, we said Landeskog is 137 or whatever it is. Nichushkin's 173.
Yeah. Yeah, if they're going at the same ADP, it would definitely be Landeskog because, I mean, he's the captain. He's going, his role is pretty assured. Nichushkin, I think, is a much more tenuous bet to even come back to the team first off. And then when he is on the team, do they put him right back to some of the big time roles that he's enjoyed in recent years? You kind of have a couple of hurdles for him to get to really pay off in a big way, but also the cost there is like more last round. So yeah, I'd like to exit a lot of my drafts with either of them this year. To be quite honest with you, I'm honestly not as worried about the injury as you are with Landeskog. Like if he can't go, I think he just won't go. I don't think it'll be a scenario in which he's like working through something. He's not going to
Yep.
play unless he's 100% and he can play the way he wants to play, in my opinion. So I think I would still go with Landeskog just because of the assurance of the role when he's on the ice. All right. I do want to take a quick minute here to just bring everybody up to speed on the Apples and Genos Patreon. Just 3 tiers that I've kind of changed up for this year. There's a $2 Canadian dollars, $2 a month tier. That's the supporter tier. That gets you access to the patron only live shows. I'm going to be doing one of those this upcoming week, which you can look for. If you aren't able to attend it live, then there will be obviously an audio recording that you can follow up on. But I'm going to be just kind of like walking through a draft, how I'm thinking about everything in my drafts, really just kind of getting detailed and taking questions as I do so. I think it's going to be really valuable, just be a little bit more of a conversation with a lot of other patron members, a lot of other Sharks Sharp Fantasy minds in the patron crew, and so I think that'll be a really really interesting conversation. So yeah, for $2 a month, you can get in on that this upcoming week. And the Apple's tier for $8 a month, you get obviously the live shows there as well, but you also get access to patron only Discord channels, better chance that I'm going to see any questions you might have and be able to get back to you sooner. There's Patron League access. The Patron League is actually already filled, but we are still taking Listener League invites. We filled 4 leagues and we have a waiting list for a fifth already going. And so we can still look to fill that one out. And if you join the Patreon, I will make sure you get into that one before it fills. You have access to all my show notes. The weekly waiver wire targets is obviously the number one draw there, but also the show notes for my puzzling players weekly live stream, and also for Blake and I's flagship show. And then lastly, I have some player evaluation tools. Basically, the way that I'm looking at players, looking at the last 5 games, looking at the overall, looking at potential regression scenarios. I've kind of built that into just a Google Sheets basic tool, but it's really visually easy for you to see how the player is performing recently and kind of make a decision between 2 players if you need to do so. Lastly, the Genos tier, $15 a month. You get all the previous perks I mentioned, plus every question answered guaranteed. It's not quite the best friends package that Blake has referenced, but it's pretty good. It's pretty up there.
Yeah.
So,
Dude, I'm sorry. Sorry that payment bounced that last one. Don't worry, I'll double up the next time. I just need to move some stuff around here, but I'll definitely get that one that payment to you.
it is a pricey tier, that's
I
for
know,
sure.
I know, yeah.
All right, let's move on to Chicago. They have a couple of not so key departures, but I had to put somebody in here. Tyler Johnson, Nikita Zaitsev, no longer with the team. They did make some pretty key additions this year with Tyler Bertuzzi and Teuvo Teravainen. Also added Ilya Mikheyev and Alec Martinez. You could throw TJ Brody in there if you want to. But yeah, definitely shoring up the offensive potential of this team. You got Taylor Hall coming back from injury as well, which should help a little bit. Yeah, definitely it's going to be a new look offense for the Chicago Blackhawks this year, right, Blake?
It can't get worse. I mean, damn, they were 32nd in the league in goals scored. Geez, that's not a happy place to be. But I mean, that's their price that they had to pay for drafting Connor Bedard when the Canucks could have had him. Oh God, that's terrible. But yeah, it's going to be a much better team this year. I'm not excited about the team, but I'm intrigued by some of the additions they added here.
For sure. Luke Richardson returns, third year as head coach there. I mean, Chicago probably had the worst roster in the league, especially after the injuries to Taylor Hall, Connor Murphy. Like, this team was, an AHL roster. I think San Jose actually probably had a better roster than they did. We talked about how bad San Jose was, like losing 10-0 games and stuff like that. But I think the roster war might have gone to Chicago just on paper anyway. But yeah, truly awful. I can't really make a lot of proclamations about who Luke Richardson is as a coach when it's just such a tire fire. I think this year we'll learn a lot more about Richardson as a coach and what he's able to do with a little bit more talent in the lineup. And yeah, until we see it, I don't really have a lot of takes on it. I don't know if you have anything to add there, Blake.
There's not much. I mean, did you ever see that Seinfeld episode? This is before your time. I don't know. Elaine, she's a character on Seinfeld, Nate. She was dating this doctor, but he wasn't a doctor. He had quit just before, getting his doctor's whatever certificate. I don't know what doctors do. Anyways, she helps him study because she wants to tell her friends that she's dating a doctor. And he does. He passes his final exam and whatever. And then when he does, he immediately dumps her. He's like, you know what? It's my dream as a doctor to just dump whoever I was dating and then, move on to somebody else. And that might be the situation that Luke Richardson has to deal with here. I don't know. I feel like he's put in a lot of good work here with very little to work with. And I don't know. He might be a casualty of just a really poor roster construction and a team that's just not ready yet, right? But I hope he gets to see it through. The guy seems like a beauty. He's a player's coach. And I think, at least they're bringing in some help here for Connor Bedard.
All right. Power play. I do think this will be a true top power play, if only because they don't have enough players to play a second unit at any length. Connor Bedard obviously going to be up there. I think it makes the most sense. You bring in Tyler Bertuzzi and Teuvo Teravainen and make them key acquisitions this offseason. I think they'll both be there. Teravainen in particular has been a really strong power play specialist basically for years in Carolina.
Yep.
Rod Brind'Amour didn't see it that way, but he hasn't seen it that way with a lot of other players, even more talented. So I don't really hold that against Teravainen. Taylor Hall, I think, is the most likely fourth forward there, and then Seth Jones on the back end. Now, you do have some interesting other names that you could throw around depending on exactly what they're going to. If you're going for like the best five players, I think those are the best five players to run a power play, but you have the up and comer defenseman Kevin Korchinski with a lot of offensive potential. Last year was definitely a baptism by fire for him, and he definitely had his struggles, but maybe another year into it with a little bit more stability throughout the lineup, he could see some power play time. I do think there's a scenario here where Seth Jones runs the top power play for like 80% of the year, and then you get to your fantasy playoffs and you look up and Kevin Korchinski is running it just because they want to get him some looks and some
Yeah.
confidence and some time. That's a little bit scary with Seth Jones for sure, and how this power play might look. Philip Kurashev, just because of I don't know, anybody could have chemistry with Connor Bedard, I feel like, but he played a lot with Connor Bedard last year. And so maybe that's enough to get him on the top power play over somebody like Taylor Hall. And then you have the newcomer, the youngster Frank Nazar, scored in his only game, his first game in the NHL when he came up last year, and has a lot of offensive acumen. Could command a look at some point throughout the season. Any of these, do you agree with the base unit there, Blake? And do you have a particular favorite of one of the guys that might supplant one?
Yeah, I like what you said about the five best players. That's absolutely true. I mean, it would make sense to put them out there, but something tells me that they're going to give Kurashev a little bit more of a look. I mean, he had 19 points on the power play last year and had a nice little end to the season, 20 points in 20 games, including 9 power play points, right on top power play one for Chicago there. So, I mean, that said, he doesn't bring anything to the table with his metrics. Yeah, he's a decent facilitator in terms of chance assists and shot assists, but nothing even really ringing the bell there, right? He's just playing with Connor Bedard. That's what's going on. And I think he has a good engine, right? This is a guy that can handle a bunch of minutes. So I would think that I think if anyone's going to be supplanted off the top, it'll be Taylor Hall, and Kurashev takes his spot there. But I could see it both ways.
Yep. The Pascal Dupuis to Connor Bedard's Sidney Crosby.
Hmm.
Chicago projections. Let's dig in. Bedard off the top. I have for 37 goals, 46 assists, 83 points. You have for 32 goals, 48 assists, 80 points. I talked about Bedard on the players who could hit 100 points this year. I do think that's a possibility. Yeah, we all know the story with Bedard. Been a household name, at least in Canada, since he was like 14 years old. Definitely has been anointed as the next one for quite some time. If the chemistry hits right with Bertuzzi, with Teravainen, if the power play actually works, there's a lot of ifs here, but the point is the potential is absolutely sky high. This is a player who will score 100 points in the NHL at some point. It's probably not this season, but you have to know that that's a potential outcome for a guy of this talent.
Absolutely. Love the player. I'm so excited when it's like players like this come into the league. It's just great for the league. I mean, it feels like it's been a while since we were as excited about a number one draft pick as we were with Connor Bedard. So he's here now. Macklin Celebrini's here. Like the future's going to be all right. But yeah, I've seen some crazy projections on Bedard. Like people taking him for well over 40 goals next year. Like, how's that going to happen? I don't know. Like I feel like maybe my projection is a little bit conservative, based more on the team environment than the skill of the player that we've got here. But I mean, he's still like, well, it's going to come down to what does Luke Richardson do? How, like these new additions, how quickly do they adapt to the system and kind of how they're playing for each other? It's still a bit risky for me. And at his ADP, like, which is, I don't even know what it is, but like it's a little bit too high for me. It's 48.6. Ooh. I mean, I feel like 80 is pretty solid if he doesn't get injured, but I'm struggling to see how he reaches that ceiling, at least this season.
Yeah, it's a fair question, but back end of the fourth, early fifth, I feel like that's a spot where I'm willing to take a guy like Bedard. I mean, Yahoo's ADP gets knocked down probably a little bit for the plus minus that they have as a base category there,
Right.
so that makes a little bit more sense on Yahoo. But I think you'll routinely see him in some third rounds in your leagues without plus minus as a statistic, and that obviously is a little bit more of a, a scenario where you're taking a swing, especially if you can compare him to guys like Barkov and Tage Thompson, Jack Eichel, probably going in your third rounds as centers. Yeah, that gets a little bit more dicey in terms of him having to hit the upside for him to
Mhm.
really pay off there. But yeah, in the fourth round, I think Bedard makes sense for me. Tyler Bertuzzi next up, 25 goals, 27 assists, 52 points for me, 23 goals, 34 assists, 57 points for you, Blake. You're the high guy here on Bertuzzi. Tell me what you see as Bertuzzi's likely outcome.
I don't know. I feel like it's still the same player that we were excited about going to Toronto, but there was no real opportunity there besides that even strength, right? And we talked about this in our Edmonton projection, or at least I did, where just because you're playing with guys like Austin Matthews and Willie Nylander or Marner or whoever, like it doesn't mean you're just going to run into a bunch of points. Like those guys have their own play style, and it's prioritized, right? Because they're elite at what they do, and you have to kind of get in where you fit in. And I think Bertuzzi did a decent job there, but I think we're going to see closer to the Bertuzzi that we saw when he was with Detroit, right? This is a guy that got he had a 62-point season in 68 games. That's a 75-point pace in his 2021 2022 season there in big minutes. And I think we're going to see big minutes again with Bertuzzi. So I don't feel too like this is even too risky. Like 57 points or whatever I have him for. Yeah, 57 points. That's 18 power play points. I think that's low again, just because of the team environment. But this guy's got very decent metrics under the hood. Shots on goal per 60. Even his season in Boston, like he was around 8. I don't mind that. Individual scoring chances around 8. He crested 9 one time. Like decent even strength player with some power play upside.
Yeah, I do like the Bertuzzi bet. I have him for 18 minutes average time on ice. The big difference between being here and being in Toronto is just ice time. Like
Yeah,
he had
big
just
time.
over 16 minutes average time on ice in Toronto. It definitely was not clicking early on in the season. He got booted around the lineup a whole bunch. He had a long stretch where he just couldn't buy a goal. That all contributed what went on there, and definitely came on towards the end of the year. From day one, I feel like he's going to be stapled to Bedard here. He took a big contract, long-term contract here.
Yeah.
Like I think that's what he's here to do. Bit of a rough and tumble player, and so I think they like having that presence on the wing for Bedard as well. Yeah, him to do like the kind of Zach Hyman sort of stuff on this line, to draw that analogy. I
Yeah.
think it just makes sense that he'll be there for the vast majority of the season and not get bounced around a whole lot. And it should lend to a little bit quicker chemistry coming together. Should be power play one as well from the get. And so that makes a lot of sense for me. I do think like where we have him 52 points for me, 57 points for you, that feels pretty safe. I do think there's even a little bit of upside beyond that to the 60-65 range. Philip Kurashev next up, 17 goals, 30 assists, 47 points for me. You have him for 18 goals and 37 assists to 54 points. This is a player we have the biggest difference on. I'm guessing that this is mostly on a little bit more deployment from your side and more exposure to Bedard. My thing with Kurashev is I just don't think he's very good at hockey. I think I should clarify. I think he's a very good role player. I think he's definitely like a professional player. He obviously earned Luke Richardson's trust last year in a situation where there were not a lot of other players pulling their weight. I think he was one of those players who was, and he was rewarded as such. The problem is now that they actually have the horses, they've added three wingers to this top six who could all
Yep.
take his job ostensibly. I just feel like it makes a lot of sense for him to take a little bit more of a backseat this year, and so that's what's holding down his projection for me.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you have him for ice time there, Nate?
I have him for 18.
Yeah, I mean that's about where I have him 18 on the dot. I think where we're the biggest difference on Kershev is probably power play deployment
Okay.
or points. Like, what did you get him for power play points? Because I got him for 17.4.
Yeah, I got him for 12.2. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, there you go. Boring player, streamer level at best. But if he sticks with Bedard all year, yeah, maybe we'll be talking about this guy. I do think he has a good engine, and we do have to take into consideration the fact that he does have the coach's confidence.
All right. Jason Dickinson next up. Yeah, got extended there in Chicago. 13 goals, 19 assists, 32 points for me. 12 goals, 20 assists, 32 points for you. Is kind of like a de facto 2C on this team.
Yeah.
Will be supplanted at some point. Maybe Frank Nazar is that guy at some point throughout the season. Dickinson is definitely more of your classic 3C kind of two-way player, but I think he's going to get a lot of minutes on this team that needs him to play a fair bit. Yeah, definitely not really a fantasy guy. I mean, he hits a little bit, 123 hits I'm projected for. So in your bangers leagues, he could have some relevance that way, I guess. And yeah, if the wingers do hit, like if he plays with Taylor Hall and Teuvo Teravainen all year, and those guys are actually having decent years, like there could be some weeks where Dickinson is actually a decent stream, but I don't think there's anything more to say there unless you got something, Blake.
I don't.
All right. We will continue then. Taylor Hall, 22 goals, 25 assists, 48 points with the roundup there for me. 21 goals, 28 assists, 49 points for you, Blake. I think this is a player whose best years have definitely passed him by, but at the same time, I still think he will absolutely chuck pucks with the best of them. I do think he's the most likely to get that fourth power play spot. And so there will be some measure of, I don't know if you can really call it upside, but at least streamer level upside for me.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's so hard with Chicago to get truly excited about someone. Like if he ends up playing with Bedard or gets power play one, yeah, we're a little bit more excited. But it's if right.
Yeah.
That all said, like Hall, this guy won the Hart Trophy. That's insane. Like that's out of nowhere. That's just like what? Okay, but he actually had a really good year. His first full season in Boston as well. That was in 2021-22. 61 points in 81 games. I don't think that's that far out of the realm of possibilities with Taylor Hall. Like, and he's saying all the right things too. Like I've read some quotes. Like this guy's like, I want to score 35 goals this year. Like, I love that he's just coming out and saying that. Like, you don't come out and say that if you're like, can I still play? Like, can I get out and skate the way I used to skate? Like, you say that if you feel good. So I mean, yeah, I'm not putting a ton of stock into that, but I think that this is truly a player who's going to be fully healthy coming into the season, and we'll see what he has, right? I mean, I think these are pretty decent projections. This is a guy you'll probably pick up as a streamer.
Taylor Hall, not known to lack for confidence, played
He's a
for
chucker.
Kingston in the OHL, born the same year as me, actually.
Oh,
So yeah, I've heard stories about Taylor Hall and his confidence, let's say.
oh my
But
God, we'll have to take that offline.
yeah, let's move on to Teuvo Teravainen. 20 goals, 34 assists, 54 points for me, 25 goals, 29 assists, 53 goals for you. So you've gone for a little bit more on the goal scoring side, but I think we both see this player as a really solid potential addition to a top power play unit, a guy who can distribute the puck there, get the puck to Connor Bedard, open some things up for him potentially, and maybe open up that power play to a new level this year. I'm reasonably excited that he's going to
Yeah.
be pretty decent for this team. And yeah, a solid addition and a solid, yeah, particularly a solid addition to increase Connor Bedard's fantasy upside.
Yep, absolutely. This guy's a great facilitator. I love his ability on the power play as well. This is something that got me excited about Teravainen 2 years ago, and I drafted him in basically every spot. I think I called him a sleeper, and he fell asleep, buddy. God, oh, it was terrible. It was one of my worst picks of the year, one of the worst calls of the year. So, I'm a little bit wary with Toivo Teravainen, but he's going to be unleashed. I really find it hard to think of a situation where Luke Richardson's not going to feed this man minutes. Like he should get more than the 16-24 he got under Rod Brindamore last year. I think that's pretty much a lock. And yeah, he had a really efficient season last year, shooting 17.6%, 25 goals. I've got him for like a 13% shooting percentage to reach his 24 goals or 25 or whatever I had. But yeah, decent power play numbers. It's a really nice piece. It's going to help Chicago. And, again, like, is anyone drafting Teravainen this year? Like, it doesn't feel good because he doesn't do a damn thing peripherally. 16 hits, Toivo. I mean, this is hockey. What are you doing? He's doing triple axles out there. I don't know what the hell's happening.
Yeah, that's fair. He's definitely not going to do much for you peripherally. I'm for 184 shots, which isn't horrific.
Yeah.
Definitely shoots more on the power play than at even strength, but Either way, I think that Teravainen represents, at the very least, a very good streaming option. I would be shocked if he comes off the top power play at any point throughout the season, because I think that's exactly what they acquired him to do. Seth Jones, I have for 10 goals, 31 assists, 41 points. You have for 12 goals, 30 assists, and 43 points with the roundup there. Yeah, I think Seth Jones is probably in the underrated stage of his career. He got handed a huge contract by Chicago, and everybody piled on to say how it was a terrible contract and he wasn't that good. And quietly since then, he's become that good, in my opinion. Uh, yeah, shoots, hits, blocks, does all the things we love in fantasy. And on a better team, like he'd probably be more of like a in the 50-point range, and we'd be talking about him alongside like the Drew Dowdys and alongside the even pushing him up a little bit more. Like he'd be more towards that Charlie McAvoy range in terms of fantasy output. So I do like Seth Jones a lot. My only real qualm here is the Korchinski possibility. That Korchinski, they like the season is going south again. They know they're not going to make the playoffs, and they're like, all right, let's give the kid the top power play and let him
Yeah.
run it for a bit and score some points and get his confidence up.
Yeah. It's it's so hard to talk about Chicago players. I'm like trying to think of things, but yeah, like at least digging into the metrics under the hood with Seth Jones on a really bad team, this guy showed out. Like in things like shot contributions, chance contributions, he was all over the ice, right? And then defensively, he's the stalwart back there, so he's really doing it all. He's a clear number one defenseman for this team, and that's not changing, even if he doesn't get power play one. Like he only got 9 power play points last year on power play one. So it's not like, yeah, the power play should be a little bit better this year. So maybe if he does hold it all year, we're looking at what, 15, maybe 12 to 15 power play points. Nothing crazy, but yeah, big time per riffs, and he's going to chug minutes. This guy's going to be out on the ice at all situations. And at his ADP, like, he's 145.7, and I think he's going later than that in the drafts that I've done. Like you could pick this guy up as your last defenseman, and I feel pretty damn good about that. Like as long as you don't have a plus minus, like this guy should be good for 40 points.
Absolutely. Last one up, Kevin Korchinski. I have for 5 goals, 17 assists, 22 points. You have for 6 goals, 22 assists, 28 points. I probably projected him pretty low here. He can probably do a little bit better, especially given the additions up front. But realistically, Korchinski, not a guy you're going to roster. It's not a guy who contributes a whole lot peripherally. I have him for 25 hits and 88 blocks this year with 104 shots. So, yeah, definitely not a guy who's going to contribute a whole lot unless he's on the top power play. Then he might be streamer worthy, but that's going to be about it on Korchinski from me.
Yeah, not too much else to add there. Like, just digging into Seth Jones metrics. Like, the guy is in the high percentiles in a lot of stuff, defensive and offensive. Kevin Korchinski, not so much. All right, he's showing the wear and tear of being a defenseman for the Chicago Blackhawks. So, this is a player we could be excited about, just not yet.
All right. Top 3 targets. Number 1 for me is going to be Connor Bedard. Just, yeah, the upside here, the possibility that, like, realistically, what I have projected for him is like he takes a little bit more of a step and he has better line mates, and that gets him to the projection I have. What if he takes, Connor McDavid took a pretty big step his second year in the league? What if Bedard does that? That's a real scenario in my mind where Bedard actually like is able to dominate even with like guys who aren't like necessarily true top line talents on a lot of teams around the league. Bedard might just be that dude. And so I do want to have Bedard on some teams this year for that possible eventuality. Tyler Bertuzzi and Seth Jones, the other two, yeah, both guys that I think pretty solid projections and then some potential upside beyond it.
Yep, absolutely. Love what you said about Bedard, and he's a very exciting player, and he's one of the funnest players to watch as well. His release is stupid. Like he's just kicking it from everywhere. So I'm a big fan of the player. I'm excited. I think 80 points. I love that. I put Seth Jones as my number 2, but I don't know. I like your point there about Korchinski getting some power play one time at the end of the season. And that makes a lot of sense to me. So I might bump Seth Jones down to my number 3, and I've got Bertuzzi Teravainen as my number 2. And I mean, that's a bit, I'm not really making a decision there, but if I had to choose one of them, I would probably choose Teravainen. All right. Because
All
I like
right.
his power play performance there.
Fair enough. Let's move on. Last one here
Oh,
is
yeah.
the Carolina Hurricanes. It's a good team. Definitely has seen some shakeup this offseason, though. Jake Gensel, who was brought over and was actually immediately a very big piece of the team, he departs this offseason. Brady Shea and Brett Pesce both leave the defense core this offseason as well. And then the aforementioned Teuvo Teravainen has also left, obviously, to go to Chicago. Additions here: Shane Gostisbehere, and they add Jack Roslovic. This is a massive downgrade in terms of the talent on this roster, in my opinion. Kind of finally the chickens came home to roost in terms of the cap situation, I think, for the Hurricanes, and they're unable to retain some pretty key guys across the board here. And so I'm fairly worried about actually what this team might look like this year. How do you feel, Blake?
Yeah, absolutely a downgrade. That said, too, I mean, they had an embarrassment of riches for a long time, and they have a really structured system, and they perform really well in that. So I don't know. I don't feel like it's going to be a huge downgrade there. Like they had so many guys that RBA Rod Brindamore could mix and match the lines, or like roll three lines out with equal deployment and just call it a day. Whereas I think now that you lose some players like this, like even Teravainen, like he was a big piece in that top six. Jake Gensel obviously was when he came over in the trade there. Maybe do we see a true top six and maybe a true top line with Rod Brindamore? Like, could this be the year, Nate? I don't know.
Well, speaking of Brindamore, he is back for, I believe it's his seventh season, something like that. He's been there forever. And yeah, he has been an absolute fantasy killer with his absolute refusal to play his top players for a lot of minutes. And honestly, I don't see it changing this year. I think he's got a system. He keeps the guys fresh. He keeps them playing the system that he wants, and he's had a ton of success with it. I don't think he may get forced into playing his top guys, down the stretch if they're a little bit more in a playoff race. Maybe that kind of comes true, and that's a scenario in which we could see a little bit more out of the top guys more down the stretch, just in terms of the ice time there. But overall, I don't think Brindamore went into this offseason where he got a big extension and was like, oh, now I got to change a whole lot of a whole lot of stuff up this offseason, and yeah, start playing guys different minutes and start changing, yeah, what seems to be a pretty fundamental piece of his philosophy overall.
I'm wondering about that a little bit. Like nothing crazy, but he's had some amazing regular season success and cannot get over the hump there in the playoffs. And he's just re-upped, for a new contract. So is it just business as usual? Like this is a team that has a very clear playing style, right? Which is, retrieve the puck in the defensive zone, dump it out, right? Actually dump the puck out. Your forwards pick it up and dump the puck in, and then go in and forecheck and set up in zone. That's kind of their bread and butter, and they've been doing that for a long time. I feel like I'm interested, and I hope that maybe they add a little bit of a rush element there. I think that, I'm going to butcher this. I'm paraphrasing, and I can't even remember the article I saw, but something about Rod Brindamore. It was an interview where he was talking about potentially like just looking at changing some things here. Like obviously something has to change. They haven't been able to get over that hump there. So, and they have some interesting players on their roster to do it. So yeah, we'll see what happens here. The loss of these players that we talked about could equal maybe a little bit of a different playing style.
All right. Top power play unit. I do think this is one area where you get a little bit more consistency potentially because of the lack of depth in their scoring forwards, particularly. I do think Aho, Svechnikov, Jarvis, Nichas, like far and away their top four scoring forwards. And so I do think that they'll get a little bit more run where Brindamore has rotated guys a lot more through the power play when he's had the Teravainen to throw in there, and Teravainen has been quite good. I don't think that's really in the cards unless, maybe like somebody like Bradley Nadeau really steps up this year, like breaks out as a rookie and
Yeah.
kind of inserts himself. Outside of a scenario like that, I really don't think that anybody's coming for those minutes. Gostisbehere acquired this offseason. every time Shane Gostisbehere gets acquired, we can say the same thing. He is pretty much only acquired to do one thing, and that's to be a pretty elite level power play quarterback. And so I think that's what they want to do there. You saw last year, Brent Burns kind of got pushed out of the top power play role, so it did seem like a pretty natural progression as Burns got kind of pushed out there. They go looking this offseason to find Gostisbehere and to solidify that spot in their lineup. And obviously, he'll play some third pair minutes. You have any chance for Burns to get back on the top power play this year, Blake?
There's always a chance. I mean, this guy's a shot monster. He sort of fits the mold with what they do there. I mean, just very simple play, high percentage play. But yeah, the addition of Goss to spare, like they maybe this is where the biggest change is for the Carolina Hurricanes, right? Like you take Brent Burns off and you put Shane Goss to spare on there. Those are two different players. They definitely have a different style. So I think that Burns will probably spend most of the season on power play too. And yeah, but the guy's amazing. I love Brent Burns, and he still has fantasy value, to some degree. But Goss to spare is the guy to own here.
All right, let's dig into the projections. Sebastian Aho, obviously the top dog there, 39 goals, 46 assists, and 85 points for me. 39 goals, 45 points, 45 assists, 84 points for you. It's the last team. Can you tell? Blake, talk to me about Aho. Do you think, like, Aho's been the picture of consistency. Do you think there's a realm of possibility where we see 90 points out of Aho this year?
I do. I mean, I didn't project it that way, but I absolutely believe what I was talking about earlier when RBA. Like I think we are going to see a little bit of a change here, moving more towards opening it up a little bit. Not just sticking to Old Faithful, because Old Faithful is something that hasn't worked in the playoffs, right? I think they need to add a new element to their game, and Aho is the clear top fantasy option for Carolina. And yeah, he paced at a 94-point pace last year, right? 89 points. I think that's pretty damn reasonable. This guy's an amazing power play player. He gets a ton of minutes. So yeah, I don't have too much to say on this player besides he's a really good fantasy option. And he's a guy that people tend to skip past. Like this is one of those guys in the third or fourth or fifth round, center only, where you're like, I think I'm going to do something more exciting, right? Like you're at that point in your draft where you're getting away from safety and you're like, I want to take some swings. I want Matt Boldy in the third, like, or fourth, like I do every time, right? But it's probably a better idea to pick up Sebastian Aho, honestly.
Fair enough. Andrei Svechnikov next up, 29 goals, 43 assists, 72 points for me, 31 goals, 44 assists, 75 points for you. Svechnikov is a guy, like I have him for just under 18 minutes again this year. Mm-hmm. We've liked the underlying metrics, is a big time shooter, probably not going to have much more than the 12% shooting percentage that I have him projected for, but a huge hitter as well, brings that to the table. I have him for 242 shots, 186 hits, so he's crushing it in the category leagues for you in that regard. And then if there is ever that one season where he shoots like 18% randomly, then obviously he's going to be a massive hit at that kind of cost. It does seem like it's a little bit anecdotal, but it does seem like he's falling a little bit in my drafts this year. Like it feels like the shine has worn off a little bit with Svechnikov. And like, even if he doesn't hit that, if he's in this, 70 to 75 point range, when he's bringing all those peripherals to bear, like I still think this is a pretty valuable player. His ADP on Yahoo, 43. So he's going in the fourth round there, kind of middle of the fourth round. That feels pretty decent for Svechnikov. Left wing, right wing eligibility brings that to you. I'm fairly in at that price, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, obviously, we've been hurt by Svechnikov year after year, and it's not exactly his fault, right? Yeah, we've had some injuries here, but we've just detailed Rod Brindamore tooting in all our faces for fantasy. Buddy, help us out. Amazing washboard abs on Brindamore as well. So, anyways, that's neither here nor there. We got to talk about Svechnikov, but yeah, I think I like. Obviously, we love the metrics. This is the year that I really do believe, again, power play one, that should be good to go for him, right? Like he should be back up to 3 minutes, power play one. I like that. I think the minutes will rise a little bit. Amazing peripherals. The shots, I think, are going to come back, and they're going to need to lean into this guy a little bit more. It's so weird. I feel like Svechnikov has been in the league forever. He's only 24. I say that every year. I'm like, what? How old is this guy? Like, I feel like he's been here forever. So, I like the player a lot, and like you said, at that cost, it's kind of he's dual eligible too in Yahoo. I really like this pick, and I don't think you're going to be disappointed if you pick Sveshnikov up there, even if he gets like 65 points. Like you're still getting decent value at that point.
Yep. Next up, Seth Jarvis, 31 goals, 35 assists, 66 points for me, 29 goals, 37 assists, rounding down, I guess, to 65 points for you. Seth Jarvis, big extension this offseason. Carolina Hurricanes are obviously making him a huge part of their plans moving forward. I saw a report, it was after I'd done my projection, that he played through like pretty significant injuries, like basically the entire season.
Mm-hmm.
Um, does that factor into anything for you here? Like, I haven't gone back to adjust projections, like to say that I think there's something there where he could have a bigger ceiling because of that. But like, it's in the back of my mind that we have not seen even close to the top end of Seth Jarvis yet, and this could be a player who like hits for a point per game this year.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, we're all like, yeah, why didn't we see this come in? Still a young ascending player in the league, and he played through injury, and now he's healthy, and yeah, it just happened.
Yeah, I there's something about this player. He has a bit of an aura around him. Did you see that press conference he did where he was wearing a shirt with this is his first press conference after he secured the bag or whatever, and he had just a picture of himself on the shirt with like just throwing money around. Like this guy's an absolute beauty. He might be one of my favorite players in the league. Like just his personality, and I like that. I don't know. This guy seems very confident in himself, and I read that report as well. And yeah, I think we absolutely have to take notice of that. Like if he was playing injured or whatever the injury was, like 67 points in 81 games, including 33 goals, including a career high 18.8 shooting percentage, right? Like this is a guy that can do some stuff. He's a beefer as well. 114 hits, 62 blocks, 20 points on the power play. I mean, what's not to like? I think there's a world where we could see point per game Seth Jarvis, right? And one of the things I love about Seth Jarvis, he's an amazing forechecker. This guy gets the business. He goes in for these battles and he comes out with the puck, on a really high rate. So I think he's a lock for power play line one this year. I don't think there's any question. And I think he's going to crest the 3 minutes on the power play as well. So I like Seth Jarvis this year a lot. What is his ADP? Because I haven't even looked here.
It's a good question, but I think that, yeah, there's just a few different ways. Like, talk about Svechnikov being 24, Jarvis is 22.
Yeah.
So this is definitely not a player that we've seen the absolute pinnacle of his abilities. ADP here is 71.4. Yeah, that's
Yes, please.
definitely a good spot. End of the sixth round. I'm definitely interested on a guy who we probably have not seen close to his top end in terms of what he'll be able to do throughout his career. So, a lot of love for Seth Jarvis from both of us there. Move on to the second line, and things fall off pretty quickly. We'll get to Martin Nietzsche's, but I had Jordan Stahl and Jack Roslovic kind of sitting there as like the next best players, I guess. I think probably Stahl actually ends up playing with his more common line mates, Jordan Martinook, and then who did he usually play with? There's another player. Anyway, I don't think Stahl is realistically gonna play as like a scoring top six kind of player. He's gonna have the same role he's always had. I had him for 15 goals, 17 assists, 32 points. Roslovic, I don't really know what to do with Roslovic. He's like that guy who always has like 2 weeks where he scores like 8 points in 2 weeks and then you never hear from him for the rest of the
Mhm.
season.
Yeah.
They kind of need a scoring forward here, and he kind of is that a little bit. So I think he'll probably get a little bit of run in that regard. I have him for 14 goals, 23 assists, 38 points with the roundup there. Blake, you have him for 14 goals, 27 assists, and 41 points. I think that realistically, we may stream Roslovic for 2 weeks and then forget he
Yep.
exists for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. And no offense to this player, but yeah, I just don't see where he fits in this lineup currently, right? He obviously fits, but where? And it's not something he's not a good enough player for fantasy for me to be like to actually try and figure it out. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
yeah, he'll likely be a streamer. Like this guy had some good opportunity in New York last year. He was playing top line, right? And it didn't really happen, right? He was playing with Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad, which was the top line at the time. I mean, actually the second line really. But yeah, just not a player I'm excited about, not a player we should be excited about. And then Jordan Staal, I think he's going to be 3C. I saw you maybe had him as 2C. I think Jordan Staal is going to be the 3C there.
All right. So let's talk about Niches. Both of us are interested in this player. 27 goals, 32 assists, 59 points for me. Blake, you're much higher on him, though. 29 goals, 40 assists, 69 points. That's a really nice projection. I think we should dig in on this one because this is about as big a difference in projection as we've ever had. So what do you have? I have him for 20 power play points. I'm for, let's start here, 17 minutes, 45 seconds average time on ice.
Yep, I got him for just over 18. And I've got him
All
for
right.
25 power play points. So I got him a little hotter there.
So you definitely have him hotter on the power play. How much of the power play ice time do you have then? I have him for 2 minutes, 45 seconds.
Oh, no, Nate. What are you doing? 3 minutes.
Okay.
What's your thought there? Because we did kind of identify the top power play here, and Natchez is on it. So who's taking his minutes?
Yeah, Rod Brindamore, ostensibly. It feels like Natchez had like that season where he was the guy that Brindamore really liked, and then last season, for whatever reason, he was not that guy anymore.
Right.
I'm still a little bit leery of that. That's really all it is. But I mean, 15 seconds, that's not giving us 5 power play
Oh,
points.
245. Sorry. I thought you
Yeah.
meant 2.45. And I was like, so
No,
maybe
yeah.
a lot less. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm shooting 19%, 64% IPP, 14% on ice shooting percentage. What do you have there?
Which on the power play or even
On the
strength?
power play, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I've got 66% IPP, shooting 17.9%, on ice shooting percentage 14.8.
Okay, so a little bit hotter there. And then the on ice shots for I have at 60.
I've got 62.
Okay. So yeah, a few different spots here, just some percentage points higher, and I guess it works out with the a little bit of extra time on ice as well. Okay, so that's half of it. You also obviously have some higher stuff at even strength. So it sounds like we're pretty even on the time on ice, a little bit more maybe. I have him for a 9% shooting percentage at even strength, 67% IPP, 8.75 on ice shooting percentage.
Yeah, I've got 10.2% shooting percentage at even strength, 69% IPP, and 9.33
Nice.
on ice shooting percentage there. Yeah, definitely nice.
And then the on ice shots for I have at 32.
Yeah, 33.7 for me. I added the
Yeah.
0.7 in there. I like to do that.
All right. So yeah, you are definitely higher across the board. My problem with Natchez is that I do kind of feel like the top line is a little bit locked in. Brindamore did actually legitimately like that line. It really felt like. I think he legitimately now trusts all three of those top line players, Aho, Svechnikov, Jarvis, and that leaves Natchez to play with the dregs of this lineup.
Oh, you just
And
watch yourself. All right. Who you're talking about the dregs here. All right. Come on.
unless somebody steps up in a big way from the rest of the lineup, I really do think that drags down Natchez's overall projection. Again, there are outs for him. I think he's easily the most talented player outside of that top line group. And so I like the player and I want to be in on the player in general, just from a talent perspective. But as a baseline projection, I think that's what's keeping me back from where you're at.
Yep, that makes sense. I think that's a really good point. Is sort of who he's playing with at even strength, and that's valid. That's absolutely valid. Like and you know this, I feel like we're going to see a little bit of a return to form for Jesperi Kotkaniemi. And I think he's going to take the 2C. And I know you hate that, and that's fine. Literally, I'm talking about a 40-point player here, folks. All right, nothing crazy. All right, I think maybe 47. I don't know what I projected him for. I'm not going. The wheels are not falling off, but he does have some chemistry with Martin Natchez, and there are some things about Jesperi Kotkaniemi's game that I think translate well to helping Martin Natchez. I think just getting his mojo back on the power play for Martin Natchez is a really key piece. This is a great power play performer. He got 26 power play points, which is the outlier, right, in 2022-23, right? So I'm banking on that coming back with the full power play treatment, right? Like they shaved off a minute right off the top for Martin Natchez. So I feel good about the power play deployment. And yeah, it's really going to come down to the even strength with our projections, I think. But this guy got 71 points, in 2022-23. I'm interested to see who he was playing with there. Like, I'm just looking that up right now, but again, this is a guy that shows out in every metric that I think is important, at least at this point in my fantasy hockey career. You know, chance assists, shot assists. He's an amazing skater. He enters the zone and carry like with chances almost every time. This guy's incredible. And that season that he had that was really big, he was popping off all over the place too. Like Rod Brindamore was doing his thing. You know, Martin Necas in his big season played with Andrei Svechnikov and Paul Stastny. And that was his main line. And equally, he played with Jesperi Kotkaniemi and Svechnikov. So those were the two lines that he played the most with that season. So I don't know. Does that happen again? We've seen Rod Brindamore like deprioritizing Svechnikov a lot. I don't know. Maybe he gets Svechnikov again. I think it's really going to come down to that even strength. But this is a player I'm super excited on, and I think he's a major, major value in fantasy drafts this year.
All right. There you have it. Yeah, I mentioned Bradley Nadeau. I think that's a player with some pedigree. Had a really good year last year. Up and coming prospects. Not sure that he'll make it, but they kind of do need some more scoring punch in this lineup, in my opinion, anyway. A lot of other people's opinion as well. And so he would make the most sense as a player who could come in and provide a little bit of that punch. I'd be interested to see what he could do and, yeah, potentially be a little bit more of that piece to play alongside somebody like Necas and kind of help elevate each other's games a little bit. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you want to talk about Kotkaniemi and your massive projection on him there, Blake.
Oh my
please tell the people why they should be excited about a player that Brindamore played for 11 minutes and 21 seconds average time on ice over the last 20 games of the last year.
45 points, folks. That's what I projected KK for. All right. This is not, we're not going off the deep end here. This is a player that got 43 points just one season ago. All right. It's in the wheelhouse. This is a guy they're into for term. All right. They obviously, it's probably if they could take that one back, they probably would. All right. Because it hasn't really worked out. But I mean, he signed until the year 2030 at 4.8. They have to get something out of Jesperi Kotkaniemi, right? And he does some stuff. This guy is not just a muffin out there. Like he's very good at assists, all right, and facilitating crap, right? And plus zone entries as well. All right, I'm going to say that. I'm going to fall back on that every time, but he does have some chemistry to me with Martin Necas, and I think they're going to go back to the well. They have to get something out of this player. He's 24 years old. I project them for 45 points. I think this is a player that has been efficient in the past. He had a 9.4 shooting percentage last year after shooting 14% the year before, right? If you look at the way the roster was constructed in Carolina as well, look at we just lost Teravainen. We just lost Jake Gensel. Okay. Like those are two top 6 options, right? And now we're looking at, for the 2C, Jack Drury, Jordan Staal, or Jesperi Kotkaniemi. And I think that Kotkaniemi has some history with Necas. I think that's what they're going to do. So that's where I'm going. You ready to get your Kotkaniemi tattoo, Nate? You're going to be tatted up. You're going to be out of control. I think actually, as a side here, I know you're going to talk some yang on Kotkaniemi. I think I got a tattoo bet, an actual tattoo bet with one of our listeners in the listener league. So we're going to get the biz on that. Shout out to the Big Dipper. He has said that he will get the cream of the crop ice cream cone. And if I lose to him, I will get a Big Dipper, which is basically a giant, excavator holding a Ruffles chip going into like a big thing of dip. So I'm putting that out there right now. Big Dipper. I need your confirmation on this. Anyways, Nate, flame on about Jesperi Kotkaniemi. What the hell's the matter with you?
Yeah, I just think this is probably the last time we'll talk about Jesperi Kotkaniemi on the pod this year. I think he's going to spend more time on the fourth line than the second line this year. So that's my take on Kotkaniemi. Let's talk about the defenseman. They have Jacob Slavin here. I didn't actually project him, but he is quite honestly like one of the best defensemen in the entire league. It just doesn't really show up in what we do for fantasy purposes. Yeah, Blake, you had him for 5 goals, 25 assists, 30 points. Again, it's not going to show out for what we're doing here, but is actually a massive piece of this team and something that really allows them to play the way that they play and to, dominate the Corsi for the way that they do year in and year out. Brent Burns, I have for 8 goals, 29 assists, 37 points. You have for 11 goals, 32 assists, and 43 points. So you're seeing a little bit of something there for Brent Burns. That's the level where you could roster him for sure as a fourth defenseman on your team, even if he's not on top power play.
Yeah, I think it's just like you and I believe the Shane Gostisbehere thing. We've seen it, but nothing's a guarantee, right? I baked in a little bit of, like I didn't go full Gostisbehere, right? You never go full Gostisbehere. I gave him 2.7, like 245 on the power play for Gostisbehere, and I gave Brent Burns like just over 2 minutes. So he's still getting there. Like 13 power play points is what I got Brent Burns. Did you have him for anything like much less than that?
10 power play points. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's probably it right there. But I think, yeah, he's still a big shooter from the back end. Like, he's going to provide some value, but it's weird to think of Brent Burns as a streamer. This man's approaching 40. Yeah. Welcome to it, buddy. You're going to get some gray hairs in that beard.
That's for sure. Yeah, let's move on to Shane Gostisbehere. I guess I could give a bit more of a nuanced take on Brent Burns. I just don't think I'm interested in this profile, right? We've
Yeah.
seen the role go away here, and it's an aging player. He could literally just fall off the cliff this year, and he's just third pair player. They take away even his power play role. Like, there's a lot of ways in which it goes south, and not a lot of ways, in my opinion, which it really goes well for him this year, outside of maybe a Shane Gostisbehere injury. So, just not a player that I'm going to be drafting this year, pretty much in any spot. Shane Gostisbehere, though, 12 goals, 38 assists, 50 points for me, 10 goals, 41 assists, 51 points for you, Blake. I'm for 24 power play points. Like, this is what Shane Gostisbehere does. He doesn't do a whole lot of anything else. 32 hits, 67 blocks, I have him for. But if there is one thing that Shane Gostisbehere does, it's he can absolutely run a power play and rack up a ton of points there.
Yeah, not much else to add. I have him for a little less on the power play. He had 29 power play points last year. Sheesh. I mean, that's a great season. And he parlayed that into, a nice spot here on Carolina. But I mean, I don't think is this a hot take? Like, Brent Burns over Mo Seider, I think, in terms of power play. I'm not saying that, but like, I think with Brent Burns still there, like, you got a guy that can run the power play. Not that Mo Seider can't run a power play, but that's what Brent Burns did in his prime, right? This guy has offensive acumen where Mo Seider's more of like playing those difficult minutes. So anyways, I baked in a little bit of Brent Burns cutting into Shane Gostisbehere there, and I think I have him for 20 power play points. So, but I could absolutely see him hitting your projection.
Somebody clip that and send it to me. Brent
Oh, God.
Burns, greater sign, Mo Seider. Yeah,
This is
we'll post
terrible. All
that.
right. Yep. Cut the Kotkaniemi bit too, because I need that. I got to keep my receipts.
I would be happy for you to keep that receipt. Let's move on to the top three targets for myself. Seth Jarvis at the top here. Yeah, I just think that if there is a player here with true untapped potential who I actually believe that Rod Brind'Amour is pretty into at this moment in time, it is Seth Jarvis. I think this guy in a scenario could have a ceiling outcome of a point per game, and I wouldn't be all that shocked. And so for sure, I want that player at the top of my targets list. Martin Deches, because yeah, I do think there are some scenarios in which he could hit in a pretty significant way. Then Andrei Svechnikov, yeah, we kind of detailed it there. Could have a big shooting percentage year, could finally get the big time Rod Brind'Amour treatment. Both of those, some scenarios, but even if he doesn't, you're probably happy with where you drafted him, and you're just kind of getting him more or less at floor.
Love it. I've got Jarvis as my number one and Martin Necas as my number two. I love Necas this year. Book it. And then I've got Shane Gostisbehere as my number three, just for the value play. But the conversation we just had about Svechnikov kind of highlights again that he's a pretty much a value play too, and lots of ways that he can outperform his position there. And he's got a really safe floor with his periph. So I like it all. I'm into Carolina this year. Nothing could be finer.
Right. Well, why don't you let us know which team you are most excited for in 2024-25? Give us a comment below. While you're doing that, you could like, rate, review, subscribe, comment. That really does help us out. It's the best way to let us know you're enjoying the content. Make sure we can keep doing this for you. While you're here, make sure you check out the Discord. We're still doing the best ball slow drafts. We are filling listener leagues, as I mentioned. We just filled the 50th best ball draft.
Yeah, we're 51 now. Not full, but yeah, we're on the 51st.
Absolutely crazy stuff. We're filling leagues like it's our job. And yeah, there's lots of good stuff going on in there. As I mentioned, Patreon there, $2 a month. You can get in for that live show. I will be detailing what I'm doing in draft, what I'm thinking about, what I'm working through as I'm constructing teams. I think that'll be super valuable for all the patrons. So get in there, join the Discord, say hi, don't be a stranger. And I think that we've gotten to the end of this. I think
Under
that's
two
all we
hours, Nate.
under 2 hours.
Woo! All right.
Unbelievable stuff. That's all we've got for this episode, folks. Hopefully, it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, which is a terrific free resource. Many thanks to the band They're There for supplying the music for this podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.